Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Josh.
and this is the Bad at Magic podcast, a podcast about games, life, and other things, and welcome to episode 59.
Ben, I've got you 5x9, buddy.
What?
All right, so have you ever heard of the RST system? It's
Not at all.
Romeo Sierra Tango. So this is used by amateur radio operators to describe the other person's signal that they're talking to. Because if you're broadcasting on a radio, you don't know how well your signal is being received by the other party. They have to tell you.
Okay, I've heard 5x9 before. It just means loud and clear, but why does 5x9 mean loud and clear?
Well, so it's, like I said, it's RST. It's R is for readability. Usually that's understood for text, but for voice, it's basically how easy they can understand you. And it's on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being completely garbled nonsense and 5 being perfectly clear and readable.
Okay.
The second one is strength. How powerful is the signal? Can I actually hear you through all of the background, cosmic radiation or whatever? And that's on a scale of 1 to 9, 1 being extremely faint and 9 being extremely strong. The third one, the T, is for tone, and that's only used for Morse code, like how good the tone is coming through that you could actually distinguish long and short beeps and that kind of thing.
So you only give the R and S of RST?
You only give the R and S if you're doing voice communications. If you're doing Morse code to somebody, you do 3 numbers for the whole thing. And that's the T is also scale 1 to 9. So when I say that I've got you 5x9, I've got you perfectly clear and understandable and a very strong signal.
Okay, so that's the highest possible score when you're talking about receiving a voice signal over radio.
That's right.
Okay, cool. All right, well, and that's the number 59 for episode 59?
There you go.
Great. Well, I also have you 5x9, Josh. All right. One of our listeners, in a follow-up to last week's discussion of the 1998 movie starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, You've Got Mail, had an alternate fan theory to your fan theory. And I know you took exception to the fact that I called it a fan theory, but I think this will substantiate the fact that I call your theory a fan theory.
Well, there's no movie made on my version of the of what I described.
Yes.
So I guess it has to be
Gaslight the movie.
There you go.
Okay, so think back to the scene where Joe goes to Catherine's apartment. He breaks into her apartment and barges in, sits on her bed, and they have this dialogue between the two of them. And over the course of this dialogue, he's on the verge of breaking the secret to her. In fact, he's trying to. If you recall, he gives at least 4 big hints.
Yes, I do recall.
He quotes Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. He actually uses some of the verbiage that they'd exchanged back and forth in their emails. He knows that she's sick, and he knows that her favorite flowers are daisies.
Yes.
All those things occurred in privileged communications between Shopgirl and NY159.
I'm impressed that you still have their screen names on the top of your head like that.
So imagine that and I went and rewatched the scene, and I was with our viewer on this. There's a moment where the camera focuses on her face, he says something, and she gets a look of understanding on her face. Now, if instead of saying that for the rest of the movie, until they meet up in the park and she confesses her love to him, thinking that she did not understand, let's say that instead she's really intelligent. She picked up on what happened in that conversation, and she has decided to do an unspoken role play.
Oh, so she's in on the joke now.
She's in on the joke from this point on. She now understands that he's the guy, but they didn't say it out loud, and now they're playing this secret game where they date in person and they go home and send each other secret emails.
Interesting. So I can see this being a valid theory, where then now she's in on it too, and she just wants to go along with the dance and the whole routine until it plays out to its logical conclusion. I can see that. Now, my counter argument to that is, one, if that was the intention of the movie, I feel like they would have tried to get a stronger reaction, or Hollywood doesn't trust its viewers. They would have beat us over the head with it if that was the intention of the filmmaker at that time, one. And my second one is, are we sure that wasn't just Meg Ryan realizing, like, oh, it's sandwich day, and just like chirping up for a second? Because again, I want to emphasize this. She wasn't great in this movie.
Okay, so the thing I like about this theory is that if you believe it and then you watch the movie, the support for it's there. Like, they don't ever set up an appointment where they conflict, or you can kind of see that she might have understood it, and they're still just doing this consensual role play that they've set up. They haven't used the safe word yet.
I love that you came at this and said, like, if you want it to be that and you watch it, then that's what you get out of it, because that's a logical fallacy.
Well, so is yours. If you want to believe that he's gaslighting her and that he's this sociopath, I guess that's what you get out of it.
I think my fan theory stands on its own merits without any logical fallacies. But I guess that's for the listeners to decide.
All right, checkmate, Josh. I think my fan theory respects her as a woman.
Ooh. Well, I mean, why do we have to respect her as a woman, Ben? Can't we respect her as a person?
I think my fan theory gives her acknowledgement and due credit for being an intelligent human being that can understand 4 obvious hints.
Well, you know what? I ranted so long and hard about You've Got Mail last week or 2 weeks ago. Like, I'm still recovering. So,
all right.
Like, don't drag me down this rabbit hole unless you want to be down there for another hour, buddy.
Okay, so another thing that came up during that discussion is I was referring to generation names, and I said one, and then you corrected me, and I realized this is a common occurrence in our discussions. And I was pondering, why is it that you and I always have this friction over generation names? And by generation names, I mean, the greatest generation, the baby boomers, Generation X, the millennials, and so on. All of that.
Right.
So I went and looked it up to find out what it was. And they're not, whatever the profession it is, sociologist, anthropologist, whoever it is that makes these kinds of decisions, it's not the same. Sometimes it's like as much as 25 years, and sometimes it's as few as like 10 to 15 years. So I thought, what is it I'm trying to say when I'm referring to this? And I guess what I'm referring to isn't just like a strict moment in time. Like if you were born this year, you look at a chart, you go down the chart and go, I'm Generation Z. Go ahead.
I agree with you. Anytime that I've looked into this specifically, it's wishy-washy, like you're talking about. It like blends from one into the other. There's these transitionary years where you could be one or you could be the other. It just depends. And like you're saying with sociology or whatever, historians, this is more of like kind of a cultural categorization. It's like, what type of mindset do you most closely associate with? And this is like the middle of the bell curve of culture for people in this age range.
Yes, that's exactly. So that's usually what I'm trying to refer to when I'm using those terms. So I realize that's why I sometimes use the wrong one. Because to me, the idea I'm thinking of is the people from this group, this is the music they listen to in high school. This is their attitude toward technology. These are the movies they find to be entertaining. This is the kinds of pastimes that they try to do. This is their attitude towards Facebook. This is how they feel about texting. All of these kinds of cultural things. To me, that group, if it can be identified by a name, great. If not, I'm okay with just kind of vaguely referring to it. But this is a good shortcut.
So I still, even after that discussion, I still identify as a millennial. Like if you look at the dates, I'm like at the very tail end of it from being millennial to Generation X. But I still associate more with millennials than I do with you weird, just watch the world burn Gen Xers.
Yes. Now, my oldest son is just right at the tail end of the millennial generation. I definitely don't identify him with them, even though he was born before the turn of his century.
Right, but he doesn't fall into the same cultural real estate that I do. Like we didn't grow up in the formative years listening to the same music and watching the same shows.
He's never used dial-up internet.
You see, that's a big one. That's important. Millennials know the transition and how important that was. And we make fun of kids for... Matt, do you ever see that YouTube video of the parents said they'd give 2 millennial kids $50? Not millennial kids, but like the younger kids.
If they could use a rotary telephone?
Yes. Dial this phone number.
I'll put a link in the show notes.
They had 5 minutes and they fail so spectacularly. I love that.
Yeah, it's great. Yes, like that. Now, I'm from Generation X, and to me, when it comes to this, I think the thing I can identify with culturally is it was like half analog, half digital. Like, I remember all of the analog stuff. Black and white TV, rotary telephone, typewriters, just like all of the analog stuff, and then making the transition to digital. Now, my parents were there. They were going through all that as well, but it was different for them. They're already 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, for you, this was the transition. Like at the formative years of your life, you're making this change and the world is upgrading. To your parents, it's like, oh, what is all this newfangled nonsense?
Yeah. So that makes a good transition to what happened this morning. I got to tell you about an adventure I had today. So
Tell me.
I'm back in Shreveport, Louisiana, but this morning I was in Dallas, Texas, which is like 200 miles from here. About a year ago, I saw a video on YouTube by a popular retro technology guy, Clint. His name. His channel is LGR. Have you ever watched any LGR videos?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, I'll put a link to a good one. This one I'm talking about has 1.3 million views. And he's talking about this business that existed in Dallas, Texas, that was for reselling old computers, and it's called Computer Reset. So he came out with this video in July of 2019, and he's telling this story about how he'd kind of become popular as a YouTuber, reviewing and showing and collecting old technology, and sometimes how it could be kind of hard. Like if you go back to the late 80s, early 90s, and it's hard to find working technology, or if you get something and you need a piece for it, it's not just out there on eBay, or there's no store you can go to get it. So he kept getting these people coming to him saying, hey, you should check out Computer Reset in Dallas. And he was like, yeah, and he brushed it off. But when it came up like the fourth or fifth time, he's finally like, maybe I should look into this. Then one day in the summer of 2019, he gets this urgent message from a friend who says, dude, the owner of this place got injured. They think he might die. It's getting shut down forever. You got to come now or you'll miss it forever.
Okay.
So he jumps on a plane and flies out to Dallas and manages to get in and makes this video about it. Now, by the time 2019 rolled around, this place had fallen into disrepair. All the words are running together in my head. This guy named Richard that started this business in Dallas started it in 1984. Computer Reset, and you could tell that this was the manifestation of his identity as a baby boomer. I think he was 75 when he died last year. As a baby boomer of like growing up with the remnants of the Depression and the recessions and just this horrible economic thing, and not being able to cope with us commoditizing computers and them becoming a throwaway item.
Okay.
So he was in his boy.
You're really jazzed up about this, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. Okay, so in 1995, in the mid 90s, he bought this warehouse that has like a storefront and then 32,000 square feet of storage space in the back, probably because his local small business had just outgrew itself. And he would go to swap meets and businesses that were closing down, and he would buy old computers and refurbish them and sell them. He also kind of stood as a reseller, helping facilitate transactions, and he also served as repairs. So in the heyday of this place, probably in the mid 90s, where we hadn't fully made the transition, this place was burgeoning resell alternative where if you don't want a new expensive computer, you can come here and get a working next tier down computer. But like the rings of a tree, it started to accumulate stuff just as the churn was happening. Not all of it was going, and the new generation would come in and it started to happen faster and faster, and this place started to basically kind of narrow down like an artery that's hardening from cholesterol.
Just inventory that he can't move. He's got all these assets locked up in computers that are now obsolete and outdated.
Yes, absolutely. The warehouse started to fill up. The workrooms, there's a laptop room, there was a drive room, there was a motherboard room. All these rooms started to fill up. The software room started to fill up until it became virtually unusable. And I think to keep it alive, he opened a U-Haul business and converted like some of the office space on the side of it into a U-Haul business. Side note, this is not the only time in my life someone's ever used a U-Haul business to run their side hobby. I also had a magic store I used to go to in Colorado Springs that was run in the lobby of a U-Haul business. So I don't know what it is about that, but I guess if someday I have some obscure hobby I want to keep alive, open a U-Haul store and keep your side hobby alive.
God bless America, the only country in the world where we have so much stuff that it's a viable business to just have room to store your stuff.
So I saw this video, and it was always in the back of my mind that this place is really interesting and I want to go there. This 32,000 square feet full of just legacy computer technology. And then what happened is Richard was out in his warehouse. The garage door fell down and hit him in the head. He was in the hospital for like 30 days or so, and he died. And then the estate went into probate. Now, it's a giant piece of commercial real estate in the district, and he had, I think, multiple children that it has to go to. But then it was full of all this museum-quality legacy computer technology. And there was a lot of people who were worried that they would just sell the property, bring it a dumpster, throw everything in dumpster, it would go in a landfill and go away. So over the course of time, some local hobbyists were able to convince the family, while the estate was still in probate and it was still on hold from being sold, to allow them to come in, safely kind of organize it enough that people could come in and carry it away. And the family just agreed that as long as they just paid enough to keep the doors open, you could come in. So they set up a Facebook group. I joined it like a year ago, and every Saturday you would see groups of 10 people coming in 3-hour blocks, and they would go in, they would find a bunch of treasures, they'd come out, they'd take photos of them, they'd share stories of them on their website, and then go. And you could tell it was starting to diminish, but this place was so full of treasures, as people would come in and take stuff away, it would uncover new treasures, and those would come out. So it just kept giving. It didn't seem to diminish. So it was always in the back of my mind. So fast forward to today. This week I found out I needed to go to Dallas for a church event with my wife and son, and I had some leftover hotel points from my stay in Florida, so we got a hotel room. We stayed up that night. I didn't need to be to the church until 11. Computer Reset opened at 9. So I went on there. Okay, this is like getting into a speakeasy.
You can't just walk up to this building and knock on the door. You've got to know all the secret handshakes. You've got to be on the schedule. You got to know the bouncer.
It was all those things you just said. So I pull up into this place, and it's this. They've completely boarded up the front, taken the numbers off, painted over all the signs, and it's just this plain white facade. I'll put a photo on the Facebook album for this episode. Plain white facade. Looks like you're at the wrong place. I pull up at 8:50. I've already contacted them on Facebook, and they've pre-authorized me, and I can't even bring anyone else with me. So I pull up, and there's no one there. And then a couple of guys pull up in trucks with trailers. And then I hear some rattling behind the chains, and someone comes out the door and says, "Welcome to the chaos that is Computer Reset." And then he gives us like the speech. He checks our ID cards to validate our identities. We have to pay $150 cash to walk through the front door.
Oh, wow.
And then I was in.
I was in.
Now, Josh, I'll put a link to Clint's video from, it wasn't changed a lot from Clint's video that went up that's got 1.3 million views on YouTube. It's a good, very watchable video of this place. It's fascinating.
Tell me you found an IBM Model M keyboard in there.
Yeah, oh yeah, there absolutely were IBM Model M keyboards in there, but that is not what I was in search of, and I ran out of time. It was very much like this, not having enough time for the situation. Wow. Okay.
I need to know, like, what is your objective? Like, what were you attempting to do?
So I have this affinity for, like, abandoned things, like old malls and towns that turn into ghost towns, and just wondering what happened here. Why was this burgeoning at some point, and what changed about the world that made it not anymore? And so that was kind of my curiosity and willingness to go here. But I also have a little project in mind. The project was, I would like to make a sleeper PC that looks on the front and outside like one of the computers that I lusted for in my youth, but performs like a computer of today.
You've mentioned this to me before as something that you want to do. You want an old-timey, like, beige, like, faded case with, like, a CD tray, and you want to put, like, a slammin' modern-day gaming rig inside it.
Yes. So I went there in search of that. I was in search of a beige tower that looked like it was from the mid-90s.
Okay.
Ideally, I wanted one that had a turbo button with an LED that showed how many clock cycles you had, little blinky hard drive light, power drive light, a little keyhole where you lock the keyboard out, like all of that.
Outstanding.
Okay, so I get in, and it's everything I saw in the video. It's this weird atrium with what used to be a fountain that's now filled up with computer parts, and it's just old-timey everything. I mean, and some of it is really old. There's like there were I think mechanical computers in there. Like there was a cash machine where if you typed on it, it would use like relays inside to calculate.
I wish you would have told me that you were going to this place and they had old-timey calculators. Those are super expensive. I would have zelled you some money to get me one of those old adding machines they had like in the 30s.
So the volunteers themselves are fascinating people because these are nerds that give up every Saturday to go down to this place for no pay and just facilitate this transaction that's been approved by the family. Now, they told us that in the next 6 months, the probate will be done on the place. It will be sold and it will be closed forever and everything will just be trashed. So it's basically 6 more months that this store is open. While I was in there, I had them give me, I'm holding in my hands, a copy of Volume 10, Number 1 of the Reset Gazette, dated 1995. I want you to feel the ethic of Richard, the owner of this place. In the age of recycling, ever wonder what happens to all the computers that are being replaced by newer, faster, and high-tech machines? The world's population is getting larger and people are getting busier every day, and the consequence, much of the world has become a throwaway society. Landfills are getting filled. The environmentalists are urging us to be more careful with our actions. And then he makes an impassioned plea for us to use old computers.
Sorry, Richard, that's just not going to happen.
We can no longer afford to act in such a careless, throwaway lifestyle. It is vital that we take prompt action and responsibility to keep our planet clean, not only for ourselves and our children, but for the wildlife and nature that is in our hands as well. The future of the Earth is in your hands. There, that's the Reset Gazette. So one of the volunteers put it, and I said, what we have here is a level 7 hoarder situation. And that's what it was. This guy was a tech hoarder, but he was a lawyer before he did it, and he had the resources to be a really big tech hoarder. Like that lady that recorded everything that was on TV for 10 years on Betamax cassettes, and now her video collection has become like the archive of television from the 80s and 90s. So I got into this place and I was in search of this computer and I was sorting through all this tech, and I only had an hour, even though I was supposed to be there for a 3-hour block. And I was just, I stepped into a time warp. I grabbed a motherboard. I grabbed a 3-button IBM mouse with the little ball inside. I grabbed this sweet book called How to Manage Your Small Computer with like old-timey cartoons on it with great advice inside. It's dated 1983, back when if you wanted to know things about computers, you went to the library.
I remember those days.
Not to a computer itself. I remember the transition, how hard that was to transition to going to computers to learn about computers as opposed to going to libraries to learn about computers. This one's called Before You Buy a Used Computer by Donna Miluk. So
copyright 1985. Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I got some software that's new in the box. And I grabbed 2 mini tower computers that are all beige and stuff. I'll see if I can salvage what I need from them. I didn't find the exact one I was looking for. I was a little bit disappointed, but what a cool trip to Computer Reset in Dallas.
But you didn't get an IBM Model M keyboard?
No.
Oh, come on.
I wasn't in search of the clicky key. They make Cherry switches that are just as good as those, and they're new.
Oh, you're really gonna hang on. You're gonna come at me with, and they're new. The guy who like drove 200 miles and had to like work back channel deals to get into a ancient computer speakeasy.
Okay, so here's the thing: ancient computer speakeasy. You pay $150 to get in the door, and then they want that you can take anything out that you want. And it was weird to be inside of a store that was filled with the dreams of my youth. Like an entire room full of motherboards and video cards and CD-ROM drives and hard drives and stuff that I could never in a million years have afforded. And I could take anything I wanted with me out of that room, and I didn't care.
Well, you walked in there. It's like, this is all the dreams of my childhood. The guy goes, yeah, haul as much of it away as you want. It's all free. All of it's worthless. All of your childhood dreams, Ben.
That's it. All of my childhood dreams are worthless. So there were guys there that you could tell they were just trying to turn that $150 into profit. So they brought a U-Haul with a trailer. They go in, they haul out stuff, make a big pile, load it all in the truck in 3 hours, and get out. And then I don't know, sell it all on eBay.
Okay. Those aren't the guys that Richard would want crawling through all of his stuff. He wants Ben Rich in there, like carefully sifting for the nuggets of computer history gold and all this dross.
Yeah, I would like to think that I appeased the ghost of Richard today. There was a guy there from San Jose wearing a Microsoft shirt that looked like he made a lot more money than me. I hope to be that guy in 5 years.
Well, good luck to you, buddy.
Yeah. All right. So that was that. It is time for Bad Parenting.
Woo! We are traditionally pretty bad parents. So Apparently, you've got something in here. You want to talk about how you were once again a bad parent?
So being a parent of children who are approaching like 17, 18, 19 kind of age, you're really making that transition from a dependent child to an independent grown-up. And it generates a little bit of friction. But I think one of the most important things you can do in that time period is help them own their mistakes. Because that's the thing kids don't realize that they've always had as a luxury throughout all of their childhood. Ultimately, some adult owns their mistakes.
Just ultimately responsible. Like, you screw up, like, yeah, your parents might make you come clean up the mess, but after it reaches a certain threshold, like, this is not my problem. This is dad's problem. This is mom and dad's problem.
Yep. If they wreck the car, they're like, oh, that's going to suck for me, but really it's dad's problem.
That's true.
He's the one that's got to get it fixed or get another car or pay the other people or whatever. It's dad's problem.
One time I was backing my first truck into the driveway early in the morning on a Sunday because I was, as the 16-year-old kid, sent out for donuts, because that's what you do with 16-year-old kids. And I was groggy and sleepy, and I backed into the wall, and my bumper made a nice clean impression in the stucco of the house. And I must have sat out there for 10 minutes, like, just like, how I can't go inside. Like, this is like, I hit the house with my car. Like, these are the last moments I have on Earth. I should cherish this sunrise that I'm seeing. But ultimately, it wasn't my problem. Like, I got yelled at and lectured about responsibility and not being stupid with my car. But ultimately, I didn't have to deal with now, how do I get the house fixed?
Yeah. There's something profound that happens when you own your own mistakes.
Yeah.
So, what was the first accident you got in after you became an adult? How did you feel about it then?
Oh, Ben, I'm glad that you asked me this, because I haven't been in a moving traffic violation with two people.
Josh, we've established this on the podcast. I was in the car with you when you did.
I constantly forget about that thing that happened. All right, fine. You know what? I'm going to tell the story. Okay. Little ashamed of it after the fact, but I still think I made not the morally correct decision, but the logically sound one. And listeners, weigh in and tell me if I'm a bad person. Ben and I convinced Ben to come to Phoenix for a Magic event that was happening. We went to the tournament, and it was kind of lame and small. And like, it was me chasing the dragon for GP Vegas. That's exactly what that was. Yeah. But
we'll talk about chasing the dragon later on.
There you go. Anyway, then I was in my truck at the time, and we were in this tiny little parking garage, and I'm trying to back out, and something distracted me. I don't even remember what it was, but something weird happened on the dash, and like, even you mentioned it. We're both looking at it, and next thing you know, I had slowly. We can't have been going more than 3 miles an hour. You're backing out of a space, but I did hit the car that was parked in the spot directly behind me.
Yes,
and
we both looked at each other and had this moment like, now what do we do?
Oh crap. And so I pulled back into the spot. I got out and I went and looked at the guy's car, and there was a minimal damage to my bumper. Like, the bumper was a little bent in, but I'm not throwing a fit about that. And looking all over the front of his car, I couldn't tell. And this was it was clearly like a mid-90s white sedan with like 200,000 miles on it. Like, it was not like a brand new BMW parked in that spot.
That's not how I remember it, but I also made a conscious decision not to get out and survey the damage because I didn't want to pile on.
So here's the thing. In the moment, yes, this is probably the irresponsible decision. But this is the math that went through my mind as I'm looking at this guy's car, recognizing that it did almost no damage to my truck. I can't identify any damage that it did to this person's car at all. I can't identify. I looked for it because I'm trying to be a guy of integrity. But I didn't see any damage to the car. There was nothing leaking. There was nothing cracked, nothing broken. All right, listeners, his car was fine as far as I could tell from my inspection, okay? The guy obviously wasn't there.
I have plausible deniability.
The guy wasn't
I didn't get out and look at it. I don't know.
All right, so here is the decision matrix in my mind. I'm like, okay, the correct thing to do. Like, the blanket, no thought put into it. I need to leave this guy a note with my insurance information, with my phone number, with my name, so then he can call me and we can get this worked out. And if there is damage to his car that is not immediately identifiable by me, then he can get this rectified. However, this is where my negativity, like the universe just wants to screw me over brain goes. And like, oh, okay, so you're going to leave a note for this guy and drive away. And then this guy is going to burn his car down. Like he's going to light it on fire and destroy the whole thing. He's going to have his buddies come flip it over. And then he's going to call the cops. And then he's going to hold this note that's got your name and phone number on it saying you hit his car. And now you're going to be on the hook for whatever the total value that the insurance appraiser says that this car is worth when it's this mid-90s used nonsense, whatever. That
was a really good left and right of arc.
So this is the thing, like, to me, is if I will die on this hill, and you cannot tell me different. If I had even broken a headlight, Ben, I would have left that guy all of my information.
I've never accused you of anything like that. Okay, let me tell you from my perspective. And you're leaving out a detail I remember. You set off their car alarm.
I deliberately left that out, yes.
So you set off their car alarm, and then you gave me this look where it looked like you thought of just driving off without even doing anything. But you're like, okay, I got to check it out. So you put the car in park. I just sat there and waited. You got out, you checked out, you got back in, and you said, "There's no damage to the car. I'm just going to go." And I don't think I either didn't say anything or I just said something like, okay. And then you said it again. And I thought, who's he talking to? And then you said it like a third time. And I thought, he's talking to himself.
Because I know. And this is why, when you brought up the first time, I deliberately avoided talking about it. Because I still feel unease. Because I know that in my feeling in my gut, the integrity thing again, I did the wrong thing. I should have left the guy all my information. But it goes back to the cost-benefit analysis again.
Yeah, and not just cost-benefit analysis, but there's a deontological perspective and a utility perspective. And you first got hit with the deontology, and then you took the utility, and you're like, I'm going to maximize utility here.
Yes. Because if the guy... I don't know. What are the odds of the breakdown? That the guy is totally upright, upstanding. He calls me like, "Hey, you hit my car." Like, if I didn't leave a note, would he even notice? Did he even know that somebody hit his car if I didn't leave a note? Because I couldn't identify any damage. Again, I'm standing on that hill. I couldn't identify any damage. But I don't know. Like I did the wrong thing. I know I did. But at the same time, I was too afraid of the potential cost of that guy screwing me without my knowledge. Unless the only way to do it both ways would be if we sat there for the next however long until that guy came to his car and then I talked to him face to face.
So to tie this back into what I was talking about with children is that as a kid, you might have thought, oh, that's a problem for my dad. Maybe you'd have called him, or maybe you just took off because you didn't want to get in trouble with your dad, but you weren't thinking about what you were talking about, actually solving the problem. The damage in the relationship and what happens in our society when two strangers bump into each other in a way that incurs cost. Now, with my children, there's been a few things happen in the last couple of weeks, particularly my older than 18 children, where they've had losing a job because of unreliability issues or bad grades, late for work, those kinds of things. And the consequences are very naturally falling on them. And I'm observing how that really affects their behavior. Whereas before I was having a hard time getting them to care about it. And now it's like, yeah, you own your own problems. And all these lessons I was trying to teach them before they owned the consequences and wasn't having success are sinking in. And I realized that there's no shortcut for that. There's no substitute for them owning the consequences as the final ingredient for learning the lessons of life.
This is true. When you're a teenager that age, you think you have all the answers. It's like, shut up, old man. I know how the world works. I've been around for 16 years and went through high school. I know everything about how to get a job and deal with managers and interpersonal relationships. Get out of here. Until this happens, and then it all comes... That happened to me as there was a moment where it all came crashing down like, holy crap, my parents do know what they're talking about. Like, maybe that'll happen to your kids.
Yeah, those are good moments. Now, we normally have a segment called Ben versus Bureaucracy, but I think you had one this week, didn't you?
This is Josh versus Bureaucracy in the stupidest way possible.
All right. And I don't know anything about this. Let's hear it.
Okay. So we got a new home gym as part of our rededication to fitness because COVID's coming to an end, and COVID was not kind to my figure, Ben.
nor any of us, I think.
So we got a new home gym, and as part of that, we took one room and we're like, all right, we're rededicating what is like the tertiary spare bedroom, not even the secondary, the tertiary spare bedroom, and turning that into a dedicated gym space. It happens to be the room that I am in now. If I was to remove my pillow fort, you'd see behind me that the bed and stuff that was previously here is now all gym stuff.
Uh-huh.
So as part of that, Nicole is wonderful in making everything that's big into small things that hide away in places that you don't think about. But in this case, she was unsuccessful because unbeknownst to the both of us, or forgotten by both of us, is the one closet that is in this room is already filled wall to wall, floor to ceiling with all of my old nerd stuff. And so some of the stuff that's in there, I have two giant, like they're enormous, like foam carry cases for tabletop wargaming miniatures.
Okay.
And they're little models. They range in height from, most of them are like 2 or 3 inches tall, all the way up to, there's one that's almost a foot tall. And just this whole gambit of different little warriors that I've collected and assembled and painted over the course of my gaming career since college.
So I've seen these. They're great. You've spent a lot of time on them. They look really good. I have probably a better than average, although I've never played this particular game, awareness that these are expensive when you buy them unpainted and even more valuable when you spend the time to lovingly and carefully detail each one.
Yes. These models are only made by the companies that own the IP, and so they are typically very, very highly marked up for individual like packages or units, or sometimes even like one model can be very expensive. Anyway, I got all this stuff out, and Nicole's like, oh, we should get rid of this stuff. I'm like, well, this is worth money. I paid for these. Like, people should want to buy them. Let me try to sell them first. And so last Sunday, I spent a stupid amount of time because I'm like, oh, let me just take a few pictures. I'll throw them on the internet. Wish, wash, done and done. It took me 4 hours to get all that done.
Well,
So
yeah.
I had to pull it all out of the closet. I pulled them out I have 5 different armies I found. And so I had to pull them out in little units like, oh, this is one army and this is another army. And I took a bunch of pictures of all of them, all of the foam and everything. And then I had to go back and figure out what the names of all these units were, because the people that play these games are going to know exactly what they're buying.
You're telling me you didn't remember that? I swear that seems like the kind of thing you just have on autopilot.
I remembered like 85% of them.
Okay.
The other ones I had to look up on the site. Like, I don't remember, like, it's stuff like proper nouns. Like, I don't remember this character's name.
But you're saying in order for your listings to be the most successful, it requires that level of detail.
Yes, it requires accuracy. And not only that, but I didn't know how much these things cost. Like, in aggregate, I have like a feeling, like, I don't know, a couple $100, whatever. But
no, you're running into that husband space where your wife is about to find out that your hobby is worth more than you told her.
Well, I don't think I was ever. We bought these when we had a lot of money before we had kids, and so it falls into that.
You have a grandfather clause.
Yeah, there you go. It was the long ago when money just rained down on us from the sky, and we did whatever we want whenever we wanted. I think about how much we got paid, Ben, the two of us, before we had kids. I'm like, where did it all go?
Dual income, no kids.
Wait, you hear that? You hear that? That's Nicole screaming from the future. It went into your failed business, you jerk. Okay. Oh, sad face. Anyway, I listed all the models on a spreadsheet, and I went to all the websites, and I'm pulling up how much they actually cost retail today. Ben, I have $4,000 in miniature wargaming models.
Man, that's awesome.
Unassembled, unpainted, $4,000 for all of them, top to bottom.
Huh.
So wow. I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy. I'm going to mark these down to like 40%. And
now, have
they
appreciated in value, or do you now have documentation that you spent $4,000 on little pewter figurines?
Only some of them are pewter, sir. Most of them are plastic. I preferred the plastic ones. I also bought a bunch of aftermarket resin add-ons to specific ones. Like, don't get me started, okay? I spent way too much time and money on this hobby. Anyway, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna shotgun this out into the universe. So first of all, I put a bunch of them on eBay. I put the 5 armies on eBay, no problems. eBay does not care. You sell whatever you want in their platform. I went on to Craigslist because I've had personal success selling crap on Craigslist before. Threw it up on Craigslist, done, perfect. Then I remembered, I'm part of a local Facebook group that sells random junk in the town that I live in. Like, that would be super convenient. Sell it to somebody in the neighborhood.
Yeah, not have to ship it.
Oh, yeah. And these things, like, they're big, so the shipping would be expensive. So I posted it on the Facebook group the meta group that I thought it was. And Ben, this is where my me against bureaucracy starts right here. Okay, I went onto a Facebook group that was it was called the name of my town, which is Anthem. It's Anthem Stuff, and I go there and I looked. I don't go there all the time.
All right, if I'm in a group called Anthem Stuff, I feel like that's a pretty broad brush they're painting with.
I agree. And I started scrolling through the listings that were posted on their front page or on the group or whatever. And I saw a couple people were like, hey, anybody know a good tree trimmer guy? And so it was like, oh, if anybody needs this kind of service work done, call what's his face. I'm like, okay, people are talking about commercial transactions here. Let me throw this up in this group. Open. So I throw it up in this group, and within 2 minutes, I get email spam notifications oh, this is violating the terms of the user. I got it was immediately deleted.
So there were some rules you had to agree to be in this group, and you'd violated them?
Apparently, yes. And so I my post was removed, and then I got a direct message from somebody. It's like, oh, hey, that's the wrong group. If you're looking to actually sell stuff, you need to go to Anthem Stuff Exchange. I'm like,
what?
Yeah, it
doesn't even sound like the right group.
Whatever. So I'm like, okay, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I will move it. But my post has already been removed by the administrator, so no problem. So then I went to Anthem Stuff Exchange, and then I had to be accepted into the group, which basically meant I needed to check all these boxes. Yes, yea, verily, I will follow your rules. Okay, great. 2 minutes later, I get accepted by an administrator. It was the same person that was on there. Great, thank you. I put my post up. Aha, here's all of my stuff. And then 2 minutes later, I get another notification. I look at my phone. Your post has been set to private, and nobody can see it because you have violated the rules of the marketplace.
Uh-oh, strike two.
What's going on? And I look at I pull up the post, and it's not the group that's now saying that hey, your post is bad. It's the Facebook marketplace, because this group, instead of just posting it on a Facebook post, they made me do an actual marketplace post where you have to put in a description of the item and what the shipping is going to be and how much you want for it.
Man, I've sold half a dozen things on Facebook Marketplace, and I've had nothing but success.
Well, and it said on there, you're violating some of the terms of use of the marketplace, of Facebook's platform. Nothing to do with the group.
What?
The platform.
What did you violate?
I have no idea. To this day, I have no idea. Because I was like, what did I do? And I went and I clicked, they say, here are some of our rules. And I clicked it, and I went through all of the list. These are the things that we don't allow. And it's 10 things. And I'm like, I'm not violating any of these. What's the problem? And so there's a button at the bottom. It's request a review. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm thinking now. Is that I ran into an algorithm. Something about the wording of whatever I threw into my post is tripping one of the AIs that Facebook has running in the background that just flags the stuff as, oh, you can't be selling this stuff on the internet.
Like you're a bot and not a real human?
Or I honestly think it's more to do with the names of some of the units that I was selling. Some of the units are purifiers, and some of them are doom reavers, and other ones are evil sorcerer supreme, and I don't know. Just I think somewhere in this 2-page list of army units was a word
somehow
that they didn't
you convinced the artificial intelligence that you're summoning demons from another universe instead of selling things on Facebook Marketplace.
Apparently. And maybe Avatar of Cain, the blood god. I don't know.
You're conducting satanic rituals on Facebook Marketplace.
Anyway, so there's a button that says request a review. I'm like, okay, clearly all I need to do is get this in front of a person. The person will say, oh, yeah, he's just selling those random wargaming minis again, and then it'll be fine. So I clicked that button, and then I had to wait. And I waited 2 days, and I get another notification. Oh, hey, your post is good to go. It is set back to public. Now everybody can see it. Just exactly what I want. I'm like, great, perfect. This took way too long, 4 days longer than it should have, but no problem. Then I get another notification 10 minutes later from the original administrator that 1, told me my post was in the wrong place in that group, and then 2, accepted my invitation to the new group. And she's a local person, and she texts me, or doesn't text me, she DMs me in Facebook and says, hey, your post doesn't uphold to the rules of our exchange. I know you're new, so it's no big deal. I'm not going to close it down or anything, but you need to add your major cross streets in the town because all the exchanges are happening super locally. And so one of the requirements is we put in whereabouts in the town you are. Okay, that makes perfect sense. So I go in.
This is a comedy.
I edit the post. The third line, I throw in, I'm an Anthem. Here are my major cross streets. Done. Save. 2 minutes later, from the Facebook Marketplace, your post violates the marketplace requirements for selling stuff on the platform.
You triggered the AI again?
By editing the post, I had sent it back through the same stupid AI that flagged me the first time. And now I'm running into the same problem. And it was set to private and shut down. Like, nope, nobody gets to see this. You're summoning demons again.
Okay, so you clicked the button to send it back to the manual review again, right?
I clicked that button 5 days ago, and I have heard nothing.
Oh my gosh. So
that's the point where we sit. Somebody in Facebook, like, I'm sure this is a strikes thing. It came up on their thing, like, this is the second time this thing has been flagged by AI. You're done.
I regret to inform you, but you have violated the rules of versus bureaucracy on the Bad at Magic podcast.
What, I lost? There's no resolution?
Yes, you have to have a resolution before you start the segment. I'm sorry, but your segment has now been rejected by one of the administrators.
Oh, there it is. Violated the rules, and now we're just going to edit all this out. What would have been Josh versus bureaucracy, you will hear a pleasant melodic tone, and then we'll just skip right to the end.
All right. Well, I will ask you again because I want to know what happened to your. Hey, have you double listed these things? Like, are they also listed on multiple places? And this is going to eventually be irrelevant because you sold them already somewhere else.
Hopefully, that's the intention. This is why I'm not more infuriated by Facebook than I am currently, because like I said, I have them all posted on eBay. Oh, can I complain about eBay for a second? Because I posted all this stuff on eBay and it's getting a bunch of views and a bunch of people are watching, but nobody's bidding. But that's fine. Probably going to snipe it at the very end. But then a guy direct messages me about one of the armies that I have posted. Okay, I put the starting bid as $150 with a buy it now for $200. And the guy goes, "Hey, I'll buy that from you right now for $150, and I'll give you $10 for shipping. What do you say?" And then when I first
read the listing, buddy.
Yeah. But the first impression was like, "Oh, good, somebody wants to buy it." And then it was like 10 minutes later, I was sitting down to respond, and I'm like, "Wait, no, that's stupid." And like, I didn't even respond to him because exactly what you said. Hey, $150, that's the starting bid. If you would like to buy it for $150,
he was trying to circumvent the system.
Yeah, I have a buy it now listed already at $200. You can't knock down my buy it now because that's what the bidding system is for.
I think these things just bring out people's haggling things. It's not personal. Some people just love to haggle. Like I said, I've had some really great experiences with Facebook Marketplace, but the very last thing I listed is I hate when I move house. I hate bringing a lawnmower. You got to like drain the gas and oil out of it, and it's got grass and crap on it. I always just like to buy a new lawnmower whenever I move someplace, use it for 3 or 4 years, sell it before I leave, and then buy a new one when I get to the new place. And every time, I lose about $200 on the exchange on a perfectly good lawnmower, but it's worth $200 to me to not have to move the lawnmower.
So I did that with our washer and dryer because we bought new washers and dryers at the beginning of the year, and I didn't want to haul them to the dump. Like, I just don't. Like, they still worked. I listed them on the internet for $25 because I know if you list it for free, nobody's going to come get it. I take really good care of my machinery, and I washed this thing. It was immaculate. It was, in perfect running condition. Started one pole, blades are sharp, everything. And I list it, and I give the minimum amount, and immediately I start getting instant messages like you're talking about, where they're offering me less than the minimum amount. I'm like, that's not how this works. They're like, and not only do they do that, but they do it within like 10 minutes of it listing. I'm like, I'm not desperate here. Just because you're first doesn't mean I'm desperate. I'll wait for somebody that's willing to pay what I'm asking for it. I'm not asking an unreasonable amount for this. And eventually I got the right buyer, but I had to shoo off like 4 people that were lowballing me, and it was annoying. I've had people, like when I sell stuff like that come by in not like their car and like, "Oh, it's so great that we're getting this thing from you. Thank you so much." But like in their truck with a trailer full of what is clearly all the other used junk that they're buying, lowballing people on Craigslist for, that they're clearly just immediately going to flip like the next day. So some people, this is a business.
And they probably don't put up with people doing to them what they were doing to me.
Probably not. But that's how they make their money. That's not how they're going to let anybody else make their money.
All right. Well, I will ask you again what happened to your minis, if you've sold them all and if you got the money you were looking for.
Man, I hope I sell them all. Listeners, if anybody's interested in buying some more games, they are much
You haven't listed them on badatmagic.live yet.
Oh, geez, that's really desperate. It's like, don't forget our Patreon people. You need to be buying my used wargaming crap.
All right, Josh, I need to be a bit somber for a moment, and I need to give a content warning to our listeners.
Oh, dear.
Listeners, if you're listening with your children, maybe preview this portion of the podcast. We're about to go into the PG-13 zone.
Ben, we're going to get demonetized. All of that potential money that we're not making could be taken away from us.
Okay, so last weekend, Josh, I'm being serious here. I was enjoying some quality time with the missus, and I was touching her chest, and my brain goes, "That was a lump."
Oh, that's no bueno.
And that really threw off my rhythm, if you know what I'm saying. Like,
Ben, stop talking about your rhythm or the evening, and that is now irrelevant.
Everyone that's listening to this is listening to it in the past, and anyone that matters already knows about it. So, I was like, "That's a lump," and it completely took me out of everything else that was going on, and I got a look on my face. And at first I thought I could just ignore it. We can talk about this afterwards.
This is the Inside Out moment where there's like four people that are frozen solid.
Yes, and the controls in the brain.
And then the one...
No, and the angry guy's like, "Pedal to the metal, let's go, people. We can talk about this later."
Yeah, everybody recognizes the seriousness of the situation except Wesley. Shut up, Wesley.
Yeah. So Wesley's at the controls pushing the go pedal, and everybody else is like, "No, this is no bueno. Like, this is not good. Lump." Okay, so I have to say, for context, my wife's sister is currently in like serious chemotherapy and radiation treatment for breast cancer, and in like stage 4. Like, her life is seriously in jeopardy. So this is immediate family, and that's the very first thing that came to my mind. I'm like, "Oh crap, lump, breast cancer," and she's like, "What? What's the matter? What's gotten into you? What's going on?" I'm like, "I felt the lump." And she did that thing that you all do. She had this split second. She's like, "What? No." Because I detected it first, and it's her body.
Yeah. And also, that's just something that you want to not be true ever.
Right. So she stops, and she feels it, and she's like, oh no. And I'm sure her mind was doing the same thing mine was doing. It was thinking of her sister. It was thinking of the future. It was thinking of what will happen to our kids, what will happen to our marriage, what will happen to our life. Her sister just went through a radical bilateral mastectomy.
Ugh.
Like, yeah. I mean, this is happening like right now. And so, needless to say, sexy times were over at that point.
Yeah.
But we also had to face the fact that it was like the middle of the day on a Saturday, and that's not the kind of thing you go to the ER for. So we just had to make an appointment to go in and get checked out, and then just deal with the uncertainty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because isn't that the fun, persistent, like nightmarish scenarios that just keep getting worse with every iteration for however long it takes to get into the doctor's office? So
we just had the next, 6 days to just really chew on it. So Thursday, she finally got in to see a specialist and got a mammogram and examination and stuff like that. And it was just a cyst. It will probably go away on its own. It was not cancerous. So, yeah. But that was a big scare, man. That was a rough moment.
That's seriously like a legitimate life-altering event that you guys had together.
Yeah, and it made me think about all kinds of things, like,
we keep saying the we and the togetherness, but this is something that Alicia 100% went through, and that you were like collateral damage at best for this whole scenario. Like, I can't imagine the emotional damage that it did to her in those 6 days. Like, you're talking about you were freaking out. I can only imagine what it felt like for her.
I understand that. The old joke about like a young couple who has their first baby, and they're like, "We're pregnant," and like, "Yeah, shut up, man. She's pregnant. You just were involved."
Yeah.
And I kind of get that joke, but we've been married for 23 years. Our lives are entwined, and I don't think she would stop me when I say these things that would happen to her are happening to us. It would really turn our lives upside down. And yes, it would be her health and her suffering. And if she went through chemo, it would be all of that. But I would be there with her, and I would be suffering with her.
Yeah. She gets the added bonus of physical suffering on top of all of the same emotional trauma.
Yeah. So everything's okay for now. It was just a scare, but we had that 6 days of not knowing where it was really kind of difficult. I'm tremendously relieved that everything is okay. And me too. And sorry, I strung you out for a minute there and didn't speed ahead to the conclusion that everything's okay. But I wanted you to feel a little bit what it felt like to not know.
I have a little insider baseball because I know you like something that bad. You wouldn't spring on me on a podcast. At least you'd better not, because you're better.
If it wasn't okay,
yeah,
you're
if
right.
It wasn't
I would.
Okay.
I almost called you a couple of times this week just for some support.
Oh, but since it turned out okay, let's surprise Josh with another podcast. Jackass.
Yeah.
Okay, now one thing I have a serious follow-up question to this whole thing that happened.
Sure.
You were having like grown-up alone time in the middle of the day on a Saturday?
Yeah, Josh, this is what you have to look forward to when your children grow up.
Everybody leave. Just kick everybody else out of the house?
No.
Everybody go somewhere else.
Okay. They're busy. They've got headphones on. They're not going to knock on the door.
They've got headphones on. Outstanding. Either your room is very soundproofed or you're not doing it right.
All right. It's time for kind of a seldom used segment that I don't do on the podcast that very much. And that is I want to compare something that happens in the game of Magic the Gathering to real life.
Excellent. Because Magic the Gathering is such a great comparison to actual reality. It's not.
It is. Now, there are a few things as intimidating as the 270-page monstrosity that is the comprehensive rules of Magic the Gathering.
Have you ever read them?
You have.
Yes, I have.
I've looked at them all. 25 years and counting of one of the most complex collectible trading card games ever to have been made has accumulated a lot of rules over the years, and they don't always apply to every situation. Like some of it's very corner case and you would never come up.
There is a whole section of the rules about one card that tells you to stop playing the game that you're playing and start a new game with some of the cards that you have in that game, and then what happens at the end of that game and how you transition back into the first game.
Yes. I'm not talking about that, though, although that's very interesting inception and could also apply to real life. Maybe we're doing that right now. But what I want to talk about is something that are called the layers. So in a game of Magic, in order for things to exist, there are a bunch of state-based effects that are just applying to everything that's happening.
I always think about them as like the laws of physics for Magic. These are things that are just happening all the time.
Yes. This is the reality of this world, and it's normally you don't even think about it, but sometimes corner cases and specific situations come up where it brings it a little bit into question. You have to have a better understanding of the precedence and order of these rules that are being applied to the world.
Okay.
So I had this happen to me in real life this week. In my work, there's a men's and a women's restroom next to each other, and it's an old building, and it's just kind of weird, and the entrances are right next to each other. And I was approaching the door to the men's restroom just at the same time that a woman came out of the women's restroom, and for some reason, just the order and the instance of us coming near each other, I could see that her brain activated the routine for politeness before it activated the routine for determining my gender.
Oh, she held the door open for you.
She held the door open for me to go into the women's restroom.
No, did you walk into the women's restroom?
No.
That'd have been great.
No, but this was a split second, Josh. I mean a split second. Like she just held it just a little bit, and then I could see the look of realization on her face that, of course, I wouldn't hold the door for him to go into the women's restroom. And her and I made eye contact for a split second. We both looked away. I went in the men's restroom. Nothing happened. But I kept thinking about that moment, that how there was just the split second of when I arrived, the order of operation happened in such a way that her politeness trigger happened before her gender recognition trigger.
Oh, okay, I'm on board. This is an interesting interaction of social rules and etiquette, but this turns into a fringe case where it doesn't work right.
Right, exactly. So I was thinking about all the layers that applied to this specific scenario, holding a door for someone.
Okay. Talk to me about holding a door for somebody, Ben.
Okay, so if you're holding a door for someone, there's a lot. First is probably proximity. Like, how close are they to the door? Like, if they're really, really far away, even if you notice them, you're not going to stand there for 5 minutes and hold the door for them to get there.
This can be tricky sometimes because you also have to factor in velocity. If somebody's running at the door, then you have to extend. So really, it's like a function of time.
Yes, there's a function of time occurring here with that. If they're really, like if they're right behind you and you were to not hold the door for them, that's a big problem. Like, it's really rude.
Oh, I actively shut the door behind me. Doesn't matter how far people are. Like, I pull it shut behind me.
Pull it shut and look at it. Make eye contact.
Hold it for a second.
How far would you say this buffer zone around in most situations is for like a public door where everyone can just transit freely?
I feel, just off the top of my head, knee-jerk reaction, you have not asked me this question in the past. I'm going to go with 3 to 5 seconds. If I estimate that a person is going to get to the door...
That makes it a factor of time as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, it has to be a factor of time because...
Okay, if they're going to reach the door in the next 3 seconds, I might stand here and hold it open for them.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's pretty good. If you saw they were elderly and hunched over and, with a cane and it was going to be more than 5 seconds, you might still stay there. These are the layers.
More than 5 seconds? No. I'm not staying more than 5 seconds. Not even for the elderly person.
So that goes into the next category, the next layer, which is maybe the demographic. Is it a fit, healthy adult, or is it like a stooped, elderly person? Are they carrying something? Are they,
Okay, so I will.
There's racial factors, gender factors.
Well, okay. We're not blowing past this. So hang on. Age. I'm not ageist. Like, you can open your old door, you old bat. More than 5 seconds, I'm not doing it. Gender. I am more likely to hold the door open for a woman than for a man. That's a sexist upbringing. I'm sorry. That's just how it was. Carrying things. I will go out of my way to hold a door open longer if somebody has their hands full because I would like that to be done for me. And I know how inconvenient it can be when you've got your hands full, whatever. That's a good thing. But race? Hang on a second, Ben. Are you telling me that you're door holding racist? Are you going to hold the door longer for somebody based on their race?
No, I'm not saying that. I think there's a lot of nuance here, and I don't want to take the time it would take to really explore all of that. So I'm just going to punt.
I'm going to plead.
But I don't think it's exactly equal for every race, even if you think you're not racist. There's still a calculation that's happening in these layers.
I mean, either you're being very racist or just brutally honest right now, and I'm going to choose to believe that you're being brutally honest because we are talking about holding a door open, like, and you.
But I didn't say who or what. Maybe I'm racist against white males.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if anything, I imagine you'd be reverse racist, where you would be the guy that's holding the door open for the Latino woman that's half a mile down the street. Oh, come on! I've got the door.
Right. Yeah. So there's also other things, other layers in this interaction, going back to my comparison with the rules of Magic the Gathering. The situation, like, are you part of a group? What is it like storming, raining, and blowing wind outside? What are the physical characteristics of the portal? Is it a double door? Is it a single door? Is it a rotating door? All these things factor in to create this just moving cloud of how long do I wait to hold this door open?
Let me ask you the one that gets me every time. This is the only time I ever have problems when it comes to holding a door open. Long train of people. You hold the door open for like somebody immediately behind you. That's like an elderly person or somebody that needs the door held open for them. But there's like 50 people in a line behind them wanting to get into the same building. How long do you stand there like a doorman? Just holding it open.
So you and I have been through this before. It probably happened a lot in the military, when you're going in and out for class and stuff. And I think in that situation, there's a number. It's probably like 6 or 7, after which you kind of just start to go through the door and let someone behind you become the next person in the chain to hold it for another 6 or 7 people. Would you say that's about right?
That feels about right. You hold it open for some number of seconds until it's super annoying, and then you just wedge yourself back into the chain.
Right. So this happens to me almost every week because my family likes to time it so that we arrive like right about when it's time for church to start. And what happens is people are all parking and coming out of their cars. And so I'll get to the doorway, I'll hold the door open while I'm waiting for my family, and I kind of have to stand there for all of them to come. And they're well outside the 5-second range.
Your family? Your own individual family? Oh, that's unacceptable.
They're never good at getting out of the car.
Rich family, you need to herd up. Like, this is ridiculous.
So they're all coming through the door. I'm waiting. And then while my family's coming through, other families are coming out, and I'm starting to make eye contact with them.
Okay.
And they're, again, well outside the 5-second range. And there's just this weird buffer where, like, if it's 6 or 7 or 8 seconds, I'll just break eye contact and go in and hope they don't think it was rude. Because we're already late, and
and what's the expectation? What's the statute of limitations there? If you expect somebody to hold the door open for you for longer, flip the situation. You're the guy in the parking lot that's approaching the building, and you see a guy holding the door, and he's like, starts waving at you like, come on, I'm holding the door for you. Hustle up.
Yeah.
Like, now you're annoyed because you feel like you need to accelerate and go faster.
Yes, and we've all been in that situation where you're like, oh, crap, and then you, like, go into that, like, fake half run. And they're like, it's okay, you don't need to hurry, but you just still feel that awkwardness of, I'm also making this other person wait because I'm not going through the door fast enough.
Yep. And it's that's them putting awkwardness on you. Like, I'm just walking here. I can open a door by myself. You're the one making it awkward. Guy holding the door longer than 10 seconds.
So another thing that influences this is your familiarity with the person. Like, if it's my wife, it's not 5 seconds. It's indefinite.
I will hold this door open until we are both ground to dust by time.
Right, yes. If it's a perfect stranger, it's as short as possible. Sometimes less than 5 seconds, I'd say. One that you and I frequently go into, and this is an interesting layer that kind of transcends all of that, and that is security. Or you used to in the past.
I used to back.
And that is, sometimes we go through portals that have an artificial designation as a control point for security protocols.
There is, like, big signs. Every briefing you get from the security people, there is...
Yeah, what do they call it?
Tailgating.
There's no tailgating.
No tailgating.
They call it tailgating, but that's the wrong word for it. No being polite, it should say.
Well, and the reality is that they want to make sure that the security protocols are enforced for every single person. Everybody that comes in this building needs to show and validate their clearance to be in this area. Yes, their credentials.
Yes.
But being polite dictates that once I show all of my credentials and get the door physically open, I should hold it open for the people behind me.
Right. And then, okay, so when I arrived in the UK, they were in the process of installing at their threshold for their highest security area. They were in the process of installing a new door that was solving a problem they had that was a very British problem. And that was they'd had so many people where the expectations for politeness had transcended their security protocols to the point where it had caused so many incidents that they installed a door that made it physically impossible to be polite.
I'm fascinated. What did they do?
They're called man traps. Have you ever gone through a man trap?
I see. All right, so I am familiar with man traps from the movie Sneakers from like the mid-'90s, late 90s with circa, I don't even remember the name of the actors or anything. But yeah,
so what you do is you present your credential. It opens automatically. You walk in. It closes behind you, and then it opens a second door. And holding the door for someone isn't even an option. It's not possible.
Because the inner door will not open as long as the outer door is still open. Like,
right.
It has to be shut. And presumably in the man trap, there's only enough room for one person.
And this particular man trap also had a scale in it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So if you were a super fat guy and it locked you in there because it thought you were letting people in behind you, then you had to have security come let you out?
Or if you presented your credential on the way out and then you were outside of a standard deviation of your weight, it would hold you there until security came and made sure you weren't carrying, 1,000 pounds of documents or something.
Holy crap. Talk about, like, the government getting into your business. It's like, oh, sorry, sir. We thought you were stealing, like, 4 computers. Turns out you just packed on a few pounds in your week off.
Yeah. Okay, so... And then there's personal needs that might influence this bubble. And that is, like, maybe I'm in a hurry and I don't got time to wait the usual 5 seconds. Maybe I'm mad and I'm just not thinking about other people as much as I normally do. Maybe I don't want to interact with that stranger that's coming up behind me and I'm just going to pretend they're not there and blow through the door.
Okay. Now, some of those are valid reasons and some of those are not, but...
then there's like a catch-all layer. So in Magic, if you're determining a state-based effect, there's like 7 layers you have to go through to figure out what the end state is. At the very end, there's just a binary decision. What happens after all of that applies? And sometimes our brains would be like, well, I'm holding the women's door open for this man. Like, whoops, I applied those in the wrong order.
Dang it, I made a mistake somewhere in layer 4.
Yeah, or I'm letting someone into a secure area that doesn't actually have secure credentials. And sometimes the military like to send around people who are deliberately trying to get into secure areas to see if this will happen. And then they're like, haha, gotcha.
Now you're under arrest.
Yeah, so that's it. You know, I was thinking about all the times this happens, going in and out of church, going in and out of a convenience store, daycare. Like, you'd mentioned the problems you have going in and out of daycare. Like, those are strangers, but you might see them every day. How does that influence your decision?
Oh, they're still strangers. But
you're not going to be...
Yeah, with the kids, you hold the door open longer if somebody has a child. Like, that's a thing. So, what was your witty comeback? Like, you told the story, like, you made eye contact, and then you both, like, went about your lives, like, both refusing to acknowledge the minor slip-up that she had made, applying the layers, and so we don't have to make her feel embarrassed. But looking back on the situation, what snarky, witty retort would you have prepared for her next time? There's a look of deep thought and concentration. Yes.
Do you have one?
Absolutely. In that scenario, I've been like, oh.
All right, let me do my best, and then I'll hear yours.
Okay.
Thanks, but I'll just use the men's this time.
Mine's pretty close. I'll be like, oh, actually, I prefer this one.
Yeah. And then we can both laugh about her computational error that happened behind the scenes.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. It's time for Bad at Logic. And this is being an odd week, we are going to do a bias. So we'll get out our critical thinking cards here. And I think you have chosen a bias.
I have, because it is an odd week and I am biased. I have chosen the availability heuristic. And what this says on the card is your judgments are influenced by what springs most easily to mind. And this is, like all of these, so true. People, I constantly mix this up with the confirmation bias, where you're you're looking for things to confirm your already thoughts that you already have. But this is the other way around. This is where something comes up, and then all of this, the backfill, all of the information that comes to your brain about that topic is the stuff that's coming to you because of the availability heuristic.
Okay.
All right. So one example that I have is I have a couple of coworkers that are both big time fans of true crime content, true crime podcasts, true crime TV shows, and they watch it all the time. And it's so fascinating to them. They always talk to me about how it's so cool and interesting how they solve these murders, or how this guy got away with, kidnapping and skinning alive all of these people. And I'm constantly reminding them that due to confirmation bias and now availability heuristic, this is going to tint the lens on which you view modern society. Because yes, these terrible things do happen, but when you're consuming all of this content about horrible, grisly crime, you're going to think it happens more than it does.
Yeah, that will come up when we get to our main feature today. Okay, so beware of the availability heuristic. Now, how do you combat it? You can't not do it. Of course you're going to think. You just have to be aware that you're doing it and allow that to help you slow down a bit and consider that there are options outside of your main available area.
Actually, you know what? You just gave me some good verbiage to describe how I view a lot of these biases and fallacies. And that is, you have to build another layer into your thinking. Whenever you're talking or interacting with people or interacting with the universe in general, you have to have another layer of processes happening in your brain that's constantly just low-level scanning the stuff that you're thinking, the stuff that you're saying. And
do I really need to hold the door open for this woman to go into the men's room?
Or just trying to identify, am I falling prey to a logical fallacy here? Am I only thinking or doing this because of the availability heuristic? Is this the gambler's fallacy that I'm falling prey to right now? I don't know. How much brain you want to dedicate to that is up to everybody else. But I always have something that I'm trying to make sure that the things that I say are, if not smart, just logically consistent.
I like it. I think that's one of the main core values of the Bad at Magic podcast: logical consistency.
There you go. You can be bad. So as long as you're consistently bad, it's fine.
So we're almost to our main segment, but for Bad English today, I want to do something on topic. So when I got to England, everyone used this term that I wasn't familiar with. Maybe you've heard of before. It's called bank holiday.
I have heard of that before.
And they said it in a way where they like assumed you knew exactly what it meant, but I could tell it had a whole system of knowledge surrounding it. The term bank holiday was a very pregnant, loaded term that meant a lot of things, and I made them explain it to me. What does this mean? So it's similar in usage to what in the U.S. we might call, well, what's your understanding of it?
My understanding of a bank holiday is like where the government has all these holidays. Some are legit, some are whatever. The days that the bank is closed, those are the days that everybody recognizes, okay, business will not be conducted today. Everybody go home.
Yes. Now, this has become a bit of a fossil term that I think will persist. In our lifetimes, we've almost gone to the point where you almost never go into physical banks anymore. And it used to be very prominent in our lives because we needed to go into banks. You had to deposit your check, cash checks, get cash.
Can I do a tangent just for real quick 1 second?
Sure.
The other day, my wife needed $40 cash for some fundraiser that was happening at her work. And she goes, if you're able, while you're at the grocery store or doing whatever chore that I was doing at the time, can you run by an ATM and get some cash? I'm like, sure, I can do that. And I went to the grocery store and I bought like 3 things. And I was like, oh, can I do cash back here? Like, yeah, sure, just use the machine. Great.
At the grocery kiosk.
At the grocery kiosk. And then I pulled my debit card out of my wallet and realized it is 2 years expired.
Oh, man. That's how long it's been since you've tried to use your debit card?
That's how long it's been since I've needed cash.
Yeah. Okay, great example. So this term bank holiday, yes, used to refer to times when there was a holiday and the banks were closed. And those had a roughly very close one-to-one correspondence. And people were cognizant of it because you always need to go to the bank, and you couldn't today because it's a holiday and the bank is closed. Therefore, it's a holiday, bank's closed, it's a holiday. One-to-one correspondence. That is no longer the case. Like, there are days that are holidays, the banks are open, and people don't really know whether or not the bank's open or not because you're not trying to go there anymore. But it's similar in use to federal holiday. In fact, they just use it now. They say bank holiday, but that doesn't mean the banks are closed. It just means federal holiday in the UK. There was an act back in the 19th century where some guy said he named all the holidays and it became really popular. I think they knighted him for it. He's now Sir John Lubbock. But it's just got this antiquated fossil usage, but it just basically means day off. Now, before we get into talking about what our holidays are, let's do a quick bad at gaming.
Okay. So I sent you a text message, and I had this. It was like so many.
It was a comic.
Like so many things, the internet is so good at taking abstract ideas that I feel that are floating around in my head, and then generating a thing, just some kind of content that catalyzes this idea perfectly. I'm like, this is exactly the thing that I've been feeling for years. And the title of this comic was Chasing the Dragon. And in this comic was just this guy sitting at a desk going, I should get back into World of Warcraft. And then he had like fond thoughts and memories about all the different things that he remembered. And in the last panel is just him sitting at his computer going, I feel nothing. And that struck home so hard for me, Ben. I'm like, holy crap, this is exactly why I've gone back to WoW like 3 or 4 times, and each time I'm more disappointed with the experience than the time before.
Okay, so talk about the peak of your memories. What the euphoria and joy that it brought to you. Like how good was it?
So World of Warcraft came out when I was a senior in the academy, or junior. No, was it junior? No. It was early in my senior year at the academy. And it was the purest escape. So that was a very rough time. Like, I really, really had a lot of emotional issues and anger problems. Like, I just didn't have good outlets for my frustration. And I felt like this lack of agency. And I was in a bad place in college, Ben. I really did not like it there. Yeah. And World of Warcraft gave me this thing on my computer with 2 clicks. I can forget everything that's going on in my life and just pour myself into this own story that I'm going to make like by myself with my friends. And we're all going to be on voice chat together and having these shared experiences in an alternate universe that doesn't involve cleaning my room. That doesn't involve the homework assignment that I'm blowing off for 2 days. Or
So you were in this stressful experience of being at a military academy, and this was your relief. This was your outlet.
The purest form of escape. Like if it was virtual,
you could go
reality,
to a
yes.
fantasy world.
Yes, I could go live in a virtual world and just completely be in a different place. And and I had friends that were there, and I saw those friends. And whenever, like, we would see each other around the campus, and we would hang out on all the times that we were allowed to hang out, and all we would talk about was the things that we were doing in World of Warcraft. So
Right.
it was this perfect, it filled this perfect hole in my life at the time where I just needed something to get away from everything that was going on, some de-stressor.
Okay, so because it represented that to you then, later in life, you wanted to go back there.
Yes, I just wanted to stay there. Like I got this amazing emotional release and felt such great relief of tension by playing this game as much as I had. I just wanted that all the time. But I didn't recognize it, honestly, until much, much later, when it's like, oh, I've talked about it on the podcast before, and you've interviewed me about WoW probably a year ago now, and I recognize that I was associating all of these positive emotions and feelings with it, and I'm not recapturing them. But that's really what this was, is I was chasing that high. Like the initial goodness that I had in that game, I've always been trying to recapture that. And it's just never going to happen. And I just need to quit forever.
So the term is chasing the dragon, and it's referring to this idea of trying to get back to some high you felt in the past and not being able to get there again.
Yes, that's a term in drug use, I believe. I've seen it referred to in movies in South Park. Like, I've never directly referenced the etymology of chasing the dragon, but I always understood it as, like, there was this great high point in your life, and then you're always trying to get back there. That's chasing the dragon that you're never going to catch.
Yeah. I noticed this recently in my third son. Our exciting things in our life aren't drug highs. They're just like we had a good time, riding our bikes or doing something at the park. And I remember him being very focused on wanting to go back and do a particular thing that we'd done in the past, but was slightly outside of our normal comfort zone as far as the amount of commitment required to do it. And I could see that this was him chasing the dragon. And I wanted to go through with it so that he could go and see that it wasn't going to be as great as he remembered.
Oh, you can never go home again.
Yeah, it was a little bit sad. But I remember doing that in my childhood. I remember going back. One of my favorite scenes from my favorite movie, Groundhog Day, is where he's replaying the night with Andie MacDowell's character, I can't remember her name, and he's trying to get her to fall in love with him. So each time through, he's iterating and improving so that he can get farther and farther in this experience with her. And there's this great moment in the middle of it where it stops progressing. He goes through and they have this wonderful moment where he's carving an ice sculpture of her, or they're building a snowman, and then some kids come and throw snowballs at them, and he throws snowballs back, and they end up tumbling together on the ground and laughing and having this wonderful moment. Then cut to the next iteration where they're doing it again, and they tumble to the ground together, and it's not quite as nice. Like, it feels a little bit awkward and forced.
Yeah, the actors were really good in that. Bill Murray was amazing because there's that scene. I know exactly what you're talking about, and it felt like everything that he was doing and the way that he was talking, it felt like he was trying to force it. Like he really wanted it to happen again.
He was chasing the dragon.
He was chasing the dragon.
Yep, and you couldn't force it. It couldn't happen again. So we've now added that. I'll put it in the Bad at Magic glossary that we keep on badatmagic.live, and that is now part of our vocabulary on the show. Now, Josh, when I approached you for an idea for our main feature on episode 59 at Bad at Magic, you suggested that we talk about the holidays. I'm like, oh, you mean Thanksgiving and Christmas? And you said, no, I mean Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. So defend your position, sir.
All right, when you say the holiday season, this is what we're referring to. Like, anybody that doesn't admit that the holiday season starts with Halloween is fooling themselves. Because this whole time, this entire part of the year is just rolling from one holiday to the next. We're just all waiting to get to October so we can put up all the spooky stuff. And we ride out the spooky stuff right up until October 31st. And then, boom, there's comics all over the internet. November 1st, everybody's in fall sweaters and they've got the leaves and the cornucopias and the turkeys. I have an inflatable turkey in my front yard right this moment. There's a guy down the street.
Inflatable turkey?
An inflatable blow-up turkey like you do for...
Okay, that was going to be one of my questions, and I had come to the conclusion that we don't decorate for Thanksgiving, so much for that.
I am not the only person on my street that decorates for Thanksgiving, I'll have you know.
Wow.
We have a Thanksgiving, like, kind of a wreath. It's not a wreath. It's like a basket full of, like, squash and leaves and stuff that's hanging on our front door right now. Listen, don't come at me about Thanksgiving, bro, because this is the mother king of all holidays.
Oh, okay. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
So you expanded the rules to include Halloween and New Year's when we're talking about the holidays. So I accept those boundaries. Now I want to talk about the holiday season, and I want to examine it from all facets. So let's talk about the decorations, the gifts, the foods, the gatherings, the music, the colors, the genesis, the orthodoxy of it. When does it start? When does it stop? Where does it observed? How is it changed in our lifetime? What's the cultural stuff surrounding it? How do businesses make money off of it? What pop culture do we consume about it? What's the ethic of it? Everything. Let's talk about the holidays.
In the time we have remaining.
Let's start with Halloween. We'll do Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. We'll do them in order, but we'll kind of talk about all those things on them.
Excellent. Okay. Halloween is spooky season. Typically, it starts ramping up in late September, early October. People are just all in on Halloween and spooky.
Okay, let's nail these down.
Okay.
When is too early?
Like
I feel like Halloween, even though you might start to see those Spirit Halloween stores pop up, I feel like the month of October is it. Like the 1st of October is the cutoff date.
I agree with you. Anything before like the actual 1st of October is probably too early for Halloween.
Yeah. But I think, it's definitely a couple weeks before that you start to see like the orange and black bags of candy in the seasonal aisle in the grocery store, and the Spirit Halloween stores pop up out of nowhere in old abandoned businesses.
Like cicadas. Every year they just come out and just no one knows where they come from, how they're staffed.
Okay, so when does it end? Is Halloween over midnight on the 31st of October?
Boy howdy, in this house, Halloween is over like November 1st. Like that's it. It's done. We're on Thanksgiving now. Put all your Halloween junk away. We will leave the candy dishes out. But that's it. Like, there's no... Halloween's gone.
Okay, so Halloween's kind of a 4-week period. Now, unlike, I'd say Thanksgiving and New Year's, Halloween is very much kind of a season, right?
Like, it feels like that. There's a definite beginning and a definite end to it. Like, it culminates in this, in the event itself.
So what are some other activities during that month of October that are kind of Halloween associated?
So that's the thing is I actually want to be more involved with Halloween than I am. And I'm restricted by both COVID and then the age of my children. For example, this year Halloween was on a Sunday, which is unfortunate. It's terrible. Everyone, all right, I'm making a stance right now. Halloween should just be the last Saturday in October. Like it just should be. The government just needs to come out and say, yay, verily, Halloween's the last Saturday in October.
Yeah, there's some interesting things. Thanksgiving is that kind of holiday, but Christmas and New Year's are not. So you're saying Halloween should be as well, the one that's just...
I feel like all of the big holidays should be. Like Valentine's Day, President's Day, whatever. They can be whatever. But like these ones that we're talking about, these 4...
Well, you can't do that with New Year's.
All right. Fair. You got me there. You can't do that with New Year's. New Year's is the new year. But the rest of them, it's like we all know. Everybody knows how we celebrate in this culture. Like we're going to do family stuff. Halloween... Like for an adult is
it doesn't go very good on a Sunday.
It doesn't. The kids are going to be out late. They're going to eat ingest a ton of sugar, and the parents are probably going to drink. Like I don't know how it's like in LDS in the LDS faith, Ben, but Halloween typically.
And this is something I need you to fill in for me as we talk about each of these holidays. What is the culture of alcohol surrounding the holidays? So what has Halloween got to do with drinking?
So
I get grown-up costume parties where we have sexy versions of every costume imaginable, but like what?
Yeah, and there's alcohol is a standard there. So it is.
But what about for grown-ups with kids who are dressing up for trick or treat?
Man, you're not letting me even talk here. Yes, there are options for you. First of all, number one, it is very common for groups of adults that have small children to get together to herd up and to switch to a zone defense. It's like we are staying in the group. Everybody get your accountability buddy, and then one or more of the adults will be responsible for the booze wagon. There'll be a wagon, like instead of hauling children,
Really?
It'll be like a wet bar that they're pulling around for the adults. And everybody shares
Wow.
the responsibility of hauling the children from house to house to get the free candy.
It's like a bunch of guys driving around the golf course with the golf court, and somebody's got a cooler in the back full of beers.
Yes, exactly. There is another, this is a new tradition I didn't realize until 2 years ago, but we actually partook this year. There is a house down our street that while the kids are getting candy at the door, the adults are getting hot apple cider that has Fireball whiskey in it. And and she's like, "Oh, would you like some cider with Fireball?" I was like, yes, I would. That would hit the spot. Me hauling my children around, getting this free candy, and I shotgunned like a styrofoam glass of Fireball and cider. And Ben, that was so delicious. We are turning that into a holiday tradition in my household.
New tradition adopted.
Longtime listeners will know that I'm typically drinking the entire time that we're recording the podcast, which is why I get more funny and charming as time goes on. But so tonight is an exception because my wife makes the best apple cider, and she cooks it in a crock pot with spices and herbs like all day, and slices up oranges and stuff and puts in it.
I bet your house smells so good right now.
It's so great. And this year we got all this. We got enough for 2 batches because we wanted to test it out first. So she's doing a test batch tonight, and I have this giant stein of it, and I put like 2 fingers of Fireball whiskey in it. And Ben, boy howdy, I like this cinnamon whiskey in my cider.
Okay. Are there any other alcohols that are specific to Halloween?
I don't know if there's any specific. It all comes down to personal preference when it comes to alcohol. There's not like a seasonal alcohol. It's like what you prefer. Like, for example, I'm waiting for the day that you tell me, Josh, event X happened and I need to go get drunk. Buddy, I've got a whole menu listed for you. I'm going to start you off real easy with some very fruity rum drinks. You won't even know that you're drinking alcohol. It'll be great.
Okay. Let's get into some of the other aspects of Halloween. So we just talked about trick-or-treating and what happens that night, but maybe leading up to that, you're having costume parties. There's pumpkin carving that definitely you don't wait until the day of Halloween to do. There's attractions now, corn mazes, haunted houses. There's horror movies that come out in the theaters. I know you and I don't partake in that. For us, let's talk about what we do specifically. I was griping earlier. There's things I want to do that I can't because of my children. This is a great example, and this I got on the tangent about the day. The Saturday night, the day before Halloween, there was this costume bar crawl that was happening in Scottsdale that I wanted. I saw that and I was like, I want to go. I want to do this. It started at 4:00 in the afternoon. You go in full costume, and it's going to be this group of people. And you're going to go start at this bar. You're going to be there for an hour, and you're going to move on to another bar. And it goes, you're going to do. Was there like a bus that takes you?
Oh no,
or
they're all within walking distance.
Okay, yeah, they do those in England a lot. They call them pub crawls, and it's a lot easier because everything's walking distance.
Exactly, and it was just going to be this group of people in costume going from bar to bar from 4:00 in the afternoon, and it was going to officially end at midnight. And that sounds
in
great.
England, those happen all the time. So whenever I was in a pub, there was always a chance that like some guys would come in like a group theme.
Oh,
like I remember
in England we just call that Wednesday.
I remember one time we were just out for, I don't know, just some like going away luncheon for one of the members, and a bunch of guys came in dressed up like really preppy golfers with like cardigans and wigs and like, oh man, it was great.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. So I was looking at the origin of Halloween, and it's surprisingly religious in nature. It was very much about remembering the dead, but in a way that was kind of slave to some of the Catholic traditions, like that of purgatory. Like they felt like the souls of some of their loved ones from the past were trapped in purgatory, and they needed to cry to get them out of purgatory and into heaven. So they would make these soul cookies, soul cakes that then you would go around and knock on doors and beg for, and they would give them to you, and that turned into trick-or-treating, and all of that became what we know now. Now, even in our own lifetime, I would say it's transformed from what it used to be when we were kids, right?
I feel like that. It was very just kids get some candy for about an hour and then go home and just hang out. Now it feels like a whole day's worth of stuff going on, depending on the town that you live in.
Now, one fascinating thing I found out is that pumpkins, which are native to the United States, weren't originally part of this tradition, but they did make jack-o'-lanterns in turnips.
Oh.
So I found some really gruesome pictures of like turnips turned into lanterns, but the flickering candle inside is supposed to represent the soul inside of a physical body. And the term Halloween, hallow means to make holy, and evening evening. So it's weird that it's become like this macabre, devilish holiday when it was originally about remembering the dead and remembering saints of the past.
I was just going to say, you're sucking all the fun out of my boozy candy holiday.
Okay, well, let's talk about the foods. What are the foods of Halloween?
Candy.
Candy?
Pumpkin seeds. We've got a ton of pumpkin seeds.
Pumpkin seeds, pumpkin pie, caramel apples. Are there any candies that you would never consume any other time than Halloween?
Candy corn. Hands down.
Yes, candy corn. Totally.
We're skipping, we're talking about all this crap about Halloween. We haven't talked about the thing that you do for Halloween, and that is,
what's that?
You get dressed up and you go out and get free candy from strangers. Like, you tell your kids all year, don't ever accept anything free from anybody because they're trying to get something from you. Except tonight, you're going to dress up like a fool and you're going to try to fleece these people for every piece of candy they've got.
Yeah. So, how do businesses make money off Halloween?
What? Wait. Yeah. Hang on. We're we haven't done an episode since Halloween, and I have not gotten to talk about how awesome our costumes were this year.
Oh, great. I think that's a great time for this. Listeners, if you're listening to this and you want to see how awesome Josh's costumes were, he's about to describe them. I will put his photos that his family took of their truly amazing, breathtaking costumes in the photo album that I put up for each episode on our Facebook page.
So businesses make money on me from Halloween because I buy all kinds of nonsense to make elaborate costumes. And I don't know when this started. It happened after we had kids, because before we had kids, we didn't do Halloween. We just handed out candy to the local riffraff. Now that we have kids, we have to take them trick-or-treating. And I think the first year was when my wife was still pregnant with my daughter, and my son was a monkey. We dressed him up as a monkey, and then I dressed up as the man in the yellow hat.
Oh, nice. So I remember this.
I had to buy a yellow shirt, and we made some yellow sweatpants, and I did
Curious George and the man in the yellow hat.
Yes, and everybody, my son would walk up to the door all toddling, like, "Oh, what are you supposed to be?" And then I'd round the corner like, "Oh, he's Curious George. That's the man in the yellow hat. It's perfect." And that was the genesis.
Thus began
the family tradition of group costumes. And every year since then, we've done a group costume. We were Futurama, all the Futurama cast one year. One year
I do
we
not
went
remember that
split, and my wife and my daughter were My Little Ponies, and me and my son were Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
We did a year where my wife and I were Stormtroopers, and my daughter was Darth Vader, and we escorted her around all night. That was super fun.
I feel like this is one area in which you and Nicole really maximize having children.
So I talked about, back in June, we had just made the decision for the costumes. And, you made fun of me, oh, that's an important decision. I'm like, yeah, we barely have enough time. Ben, I was working on the costumes for this year right up to the day. The day of Halloween, we were putting the finishing touches on the costumes. And so this year, we were characters from one of my favorite games, Hollow Knight. And so we made custom foam helmets to make everybody's head look like the bugs that are in that game.
Those are such abstract cell cartoony looking things. How did you turn that into real life?
You know how I did it. You just want me to describe it.
Oh my gosh, you did it with math.
I did it with math. No, I had reference art that I was measuring with calipers to get the exact millimeter size, and then I would measure the actual size of the helmets that we were going to wear, and then I would get a transition ratio so I could scale everything up for each individual person from their reference art.
But you had to adjust it. It couldn't just be perfect.
Yeah, mine. So everybody's was basically on point, but mine, if I had made mine to scale, Ben, I would have been wearing a helmet that itself was 6 feet tall. And
you're already 6 feet tall, so that
would have caused problems. So I did have to scale that one down. So I was only a sum total of 9 feet tall as I was walking around the neighborhood, which I still had problems with the trees. I had to walk out in the middle of the street multiple times to clear low-hanging branches.
You did a good job of scaling it down, but it still looked exactly like what you were going for.
We hands down, every house we went to said, "Oh man, you guys' costumes look amazing. You have one Halloween, but we have no idea what you are." There was one kid walking around in a Master Chief costume that goes, "Oh, Hollow Knight, that's awesome." And my wife and I are like, "That's it, we win, high five." One person knows who we are. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, we had a few years where just only one did, but if that one feels so rewarding.
It does. We dug deep for this Halloween. I don't know how we're going to top it next year.
Yeah, wow. Well, I don't know. I was kind of partial to the you guys were all Mandalorians, but yeah.
Mandalorians were a very good costume. That was one of my favorites. Yeah, I walked around with my fists balled like I was the toughest guy in the street. Like, it was great.
Does your family have any movies that you watch that are Halloween specific?
Not really. There's not a lot of, like, we do big on the costumes. But as far as other traditions go, my wife is getting more and more into decorating for Halloween. So every year, our porch where we leave the candy and the treats out for the kids is getting more and more elaborate. And she likes doing that. So there's more stuff that we're accumulating for decorating for that. And then as far as movies go, the only thing that I can throw out there is The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Now, is that a Christmas movie or a Halloween
I'm
movie?
not starting this internet debate with you. We watched it.
Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40?
The main character is a Halloween character. So my kids watched it at Halloween. It is more spooky than it is Christmassy. It's a Halloween movie to me in my household.
80-20?
75-25.
Okay.
There's some magic of Christmas in there.
That's the only one that came up when I was brainstorming this with my family. Now, I looked at the geography of this, and having lived in other countries, like in Italy, it wasn't really observed, and in England, it was like they want to observe it the way we do in the U.S., but it's not quite catching on with some of the stodgy older people. Like, kids would go out trick-or-treating and just not have much luck.
Interesting.
Yeah, we think of it in a very American-centric way, and this one isn't widely observed the way we do it around the world, even though people kind of want to, because you could tell they're like, that looks like a lot of fun, let's get into that. But you don't realize how much cultural inertia you need to make it get executed the way that we do.
Yeah, we don't have to coordinate with our neighbors, like, hey, when is trick-or-treating start? Are you going to have candy on the day of? Like, everybody, it's just accepted in culture.
It just happens. Yeah. Yep, exactly. And if it didn't, it would lose a lot of its inertia and emphasis. So businesses make money on it because they're selling you candy. I guess you're decorating. There's costumes, all that kind of stuff. The reason I'm pointing this out is because it's different for each of the 4 holidays, and I'm imagining the mother of all infographics. So I'm already started on it.
Oh, Ben loves his infographics.
Yeah. Okay. I think I've about milked that one. Let me look back.
Well,
hang
on a second. What do you do for Halloween?
The colors, orange and black.
Stop looking at your bulleted list. Tell me how you celebrate Halloween, Ben Rich.
I'm a bit of stick in the mud. Like it felt like when I turned 15 and I was too old to go trick-or-treating anymore that I was kind of done with it. So I've never just really had that fondness for it. Now my wife is the awesome mother that she is, because she is very determined to help our children have the magical childhood that they should. And so she goes to great lengths to make them elaborate, beautiful, awesome costumes. I'll go to the parties. I'll answer the door for the trick-or-treaters, but I'm not going out of my way. Except one year when my second son was 7 years old.
You're doing that old man thing where we don't care about how old he was.
It's important. That's why I focus on the detail. He was 7 years old, and he says, he would always come up with weird things he wanted to be. Like one year he said he wanted to be a garbage. So she took a garbage can, cut the bottom of it, put like a banana peel and some rubbish on him, and then he poked his head out of it and he was a garbage can. The year before that he was the world. He wanted to be the world, so she made him like a globe with a map on it, and he was the world.
Nice.
Well, this year he said he wanted to be a toilet.
Interesting.
And my wife, who's normally game for anything, took one look at him and said, I'm not making you a toilet. Think of something else.
Oh.
And I saw my moment of glory, and I went for it. And I said, son, I will make you into a toilet.
Son, I will make you into the most fabulous toilet that this neighborhood has ever seen.
So I went and I built a frame out of lumber that could hold the structure of a toilet, and then I wrapped it in cardboard and painted it white, and then I went to the hardware store and I bought a flush handle, a toilet paper dispenser, and a seat. and I installed it on this apparatus so that in the end, he was in the tank, the reservoir, with his arms sticking out the sides, and under his left arm, he had a toilet paper dispenser with toilet paper flapping in the wind, and in front of him, he had the bowl with the lid on it that you could lift up, and then there was a bag there, and you could throw the candy into the toilet bowl.
That's outstanding, and it must have weighed 80 pounds.
It was really heavy, and he loved it. He couldn't bend over. It was fabulous. I put it on Reddit, and somebody picked it up on the Chive, and it went ultra viral on the internet. I think it got tens of thousands of hits that year.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was my moment of glory. But usually building the costumes is Mom's glory, and she does great. This year she did some fabulous ones. I'll put some photos in the Facebook photo album.
You just reminded me of some childhood trauma I had one year. Like I was in elementary school, and my dad made me this awesome killer robot costume out of like actual electronics and things that are all glued together. Now, here's the thing. The night that I went out trick-or-treating, two things happened. One is I won the school costume contest because it was that awesome. But we had glued a bunch of like little electronic parts and stuff to my arms with like clear glue, and it was no big deal. We just like peeled it off afterward. But then he went to the hardware store and bought the really good stuff for like the night of, and the chemical compound was a little bit different, so I got like a second-degree chemical burn on my arm from it. Like I had like a full forearm bandage for a couple of weeks after that. Like he felt terrible. But then also the other thing was I couldn't bend my legs. Like I had real bendy stuff for my arms, but my legs were just solid steel tubes, and so I couldn't bend my knees at all. And I was walking stiff-legged, and I fell over like 3 or 4 times, and I couldn't move, and I couldn't keep up. And it was awful that whole night. But like just you talking about making your son the costume, like holy crap. I also made my son a terrible costume the first time I tried to make something from scratch. When the year we were Futurama, I made him a really bad Bender costume that looked good, but he couldn't move in it and ended up taking it off after 10 minutes because it was uncomfortable. And I feel like every dad has to go through this phase of like, I can rip out a costume, no problem. And you don't put enough time or effort or thought or consideration into it. You make something that weighs 80 pounds or the kid's legs can't bend or it's super uncomfortable. And then you have to rededicate yourself like, I need to spend a lot more time thinking about this and do it better in the future. Or you give up entirely and never do it again.
Yeah, but this isn't just to dads and Halloween. I just watched Daredevil with Ben Affleck back in like the late 90s.
That movie's terrible.
And I read some quotes about him, and he vowed never to play another superhero. Ben, I hate to break it to you, but your Batman was terrible. He vowed to never play another superhero because of the same kind of problems. You got professional costume designers that were erring on the side of what looks cool, but was really, apparently he couldn't turn his head, and it was uncomfortable and hot and horrible. And so, and then you spend hours upon hours in this costume, and yeah, it sucks. Not to mention he couldn't see.
Not just our problem then.
Yeah. So we've had some great hits. I remember one year we did all of the characters. We had Mario and Luigi and Peach, which is awesome. We had a couple of like different color Zeldas and Princess Zelda. I mean Link's and Princess Zelda.
Thank you for correcting me.
We did one year. My wife did her and all the girls were the characters from Despicable Me 2. All the female characters. That was fantastic. We've had some great family theme ones, but notice I'm not in any of those, but you're always in yours. So that's my role. I'm the stick in the mud.
Boo, stick in the mud. All right. We're never going to get through all of these in the time that we have left.
Well, I have an idea because I can see the pace that we're on. We're only going to get through Halloween and Thanksgiving this episode, so I think we're going to need to leak over to episode 60, and then we'll do Christmas and New Year's maybe for the next episode.
Okay, that works for me.
Okay, so let me see if there's anything we missed on Halloween. I think we got all colors, geography, television specials, Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin, all that kind of stuff. Let's move on to Thanksgiving.
Okay, so Ben, in my mind, Thanksgiving is the premier holiday of the holiday season, and you're not gonna change my thoughts on this because Halloween is fun. Halloween is like ramping up into the holidays, and it's just spooky fun. Random nonsense, but it's mostly kid-oriented. This is a kid holiday, Halloween is. Adults derive fun from it. Like, for example, some people have fun dressing up like I do because I don't get to wear costumes as a grown man at any other time unless I'm with kids trick-or-treating. And then, like, my father and my brother are big into creating big, elaborate scenarios where they get to scare children.
Diplomatic immunity for acting childish.
There you go. So that's Halloween. Halloween is childish fun. Thanksgiving is adult fun. Like, what are we gonna like? What is the idea of a holiday for you? Oh, you know what? Let's do it on a Thursday, so you can easily justify taking Wednesday and Friday off because there's no reason not to do that. Like, that's
keep going. You're on a roll.
Let's make this like an abstract holiday, so people can apply whatever meaning they want to it, and it doesn't matter. And that's centered around having a ginormous meal of food that otherwise, like, what would be the point? Like, let's come up with an excuse to make 5 people slave in a kitchen all day to make all of the best food for everybody. Just because they're never going to make like a meal like this at any other time of the year. So let's just go whole hog on it. And you know what? On top of it, let's have a football game. Just make sure that there's a game on
right in the middle of the day on a Thursday.
Yeah, just for everybody to watch and enjoy the whole time.
Yeah, but then they screwed it up and they said, and every year let it be the Detroit Lions.
Is that true? Is it always the Detroit that plays on Thanksgiving?
It's always the Detroit Lions.
I mean,
let's look it up. I'm looking it up right now. You talk.
All right, so I love Thanksgiving. And the historical significance, they teach you that in elementary school about the Pilgrims and the Indians coming together and forming a society. Yeah, yay! Like, that's wonderful. Whatever. Like, you can justify it however you want. The idea behind it now, the cultural idea, is we're going to have this large meal, and we're all going to take a second, and we're just going to recognize what we're thankful for. And hopefully, everybody, one of the things that people are thankful for is the fact that we can all afford this ludicrous amount of food every year for this holiday.
So it used to only be one game on Thanksgiving Day. Now the NFL has just really capitalized on it, and they do like 2 or 3. But the very first one on Thanksgiving Day this year, Thursday, November 25th, Chicago Bears at Detroit Lions.
I don't even care if that's false. That's truth for me. Like, the Detroit Lions always play on Thanksgiving now. That is coded in my brain. I don't know when this happened, but a few years ago, I made Thanksgiving dinner, and I found that I really enjoyed doing it. And so
being the cook.
Being the guy, yeah. I personally now derive a ton of fun and excitement from planning and executing this enormous meal for my loved ones.
Do you do all the insanity like frying a turkey is?
No. I prefer to smoke my turkey. Now, smoking a turkey isn't the same as smoking a brisket. It doesn't take as much time, but it still takes like 6 to 8 hours of commitment, like, to get it done properly.
Wow. Do you have that seems like it would require a very specialized appliance.
If like a steel
or a really big hole in the ground.
My parents had a smoker in their like a charcoal smoker in their garage for like 10 plus years or something, and then they gave it to me as a Christmas gift probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I have used it for every major holiday since then to smoke elaborate giant chunks of meat.
That does sound yummy.
I also do, for people that don't want like smoked turkey. Personally, me, I love the turkey that I make in both flavors, but I'm a dark meat kind of guy, and I really enjoy having turkey legs. And I was always disappointed as a kid growing up that there was only 2 turkey legs for like the entire, clan that shows up at grandma's house for Thanksgiving dinner. And so I always usually make 4 to 6 extra turkey legs wrapped in bacon on the barbecue in addition, just so they're available. And then all the best sides. Yeah, like Thanksgiving is all about the best side dishes, and just make all of them. And then now Nicole does her wonderful slow cooked all day crock pot apple cider, and she has, for the kids you just scoop it out. For the adults, there is the rum and the vodka, and now the Fireball whiskey that sits next to the thing, so you can spike up your apple cider however you want to.
Okay, again, that must make the house smell amazing. Now, I want to contrast all the holidays here. So I was going to say that Thanksgiving is the holiday that you don't decorate for, but now you're talking about inflatable turkeys in the yard. I feel like this is just corporate profiteerism taking over. Like, why are we decorating for Thanksgiving other than like cornucopias and fall leaf colored tablecloths? So
we also have a fall colored table runner across our countertop right now, and a cornucopia with a bunch of fake pumpkins and turkeys, and like our entire kitchen area is decked out in Thanksgiving nonsense. And
we decorate for Thanksgiving because we need for something to do for the month of November. Okay.
So I have acknowledged, and I've said right now, that Thanksgiving is the premier holiday, and I very much like Thanksgiving. My wife, being the incredibly thoughtful, passionate person that she is, has taken my love for Thanksgiving and translated that into
All
into
right.
a month long.
Good job, Nicole.
Decorating and like
speak Josh's love language.
Yeah. She just does all these things to feed into like the spirit of the holiday that I like so much.
Okay. Now, another thing I like to contrast Halloween with from Thanksgiving is that Halloween's kind of the season where you're going to like parties and doing activities and stuff, but Thanksgiving's very singularly focused on one day.
Yes. Like you're talking about spooky season for Halloween, you're ramping up the whole time and there's things that are happening.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving's not like that. Thanksgiving is like,
there's a carnival at the school and there's trunk or treat and
there's nothing for Thanksgiving.
Hay rides, but Thanksgiving is the day.
Yes, we're going to do turkey on this day and that's Thanksgiving, it's over. Now,
yes,
that's part of my disappointment, Ben. I think Thanksgiving should be a whole season. I think people should walk around in Thanksgiving shirts, wishing each other, just like instead of Merry Christmas, like, give thanks, and then just walking by. This should be more of a cultural thing. We should ramp this up.
Now, again, contrasting all the holidays against each other, Thanksgiving tends to be the one that's most focused around family togetherness. This is the one you travel to family's house for to get everybody together, more so than any of the others.
There's an argument to be made for Christmas, but I'm on board. I know what you're saying. Like, this one is specifically about the togetherness and not about something else.
Yeah, and it's a feast. It's very much focused on a feast, and that term feast, goes back to whatever, Adam and Eve, like way back. The idea of getting together and enjoying a bounteous, partaking of a meal together.
A smorgasbord.
Does it have music? We were asking some of these questions, and like, I don't know if are there Thanksgiving gifts or Thanksgiving music.
So I consider Thanksgiving gifts. Anybody that's not the main meal preparer, they need to bring something. Like, and I will hand out minor tasks to people that are coming over. Like, if you are going to come to Josh Fleshman's Thanksgiving dinner,
okay.
I might assign
the gifts are potluck.
A little bit, yeah. It's like, hey, bring the rolls. Bring your rolls. Do a spin on rolls. If you want to bring them like just dough roll, like the dough, and we'll bake them in the oven, that's fine. If you want to bring them like in a basket that's like steaming with the freshness coming off or whatever, like you do you. But like your task is to bring bread to this meal.
Okay. I like that. So the gifts, it's focused on a feast, and the gifts are a gift of food. Now, I realize something that maybe has diminished in our lifetimes is the emphasis on a Thanksgiving Day parade. Have you ever participated in one, or did you used to watch it on TV?
No, we always had a different tradition in my family. Like, I remember watching it on TV, and my wife tries to pull it up on TV in Thanksgiving here, but we always...
Yeah, the New York Macy's Day Parade that started 100 years ago.
So we do turkey trot. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, that's a good one. Let's talk about that since we're talking about activities now. It's like we want Thanksgiving to be more like the other holidays, so we're trying to find activities to add on to it. So turkey trot the day of Thanksgiving or the day before?
Day of. It is on Thanksgiving Day. Like they're all over. Like, look it up. This is a thing. The day of Thanksgiving in our town, there is a road race where you go, you sign up in advance, you show up, you get a number, and everybody runs a race. Through the town, like there's a marked track or trail or whatever. In our town, they do a 5K and a 10K, and then they have a kid's half mile, like dash is what they call it, because it's over in seconds.
Yeah.
But and then you get like a T-shirt from it, and it's always got like a really terribly drawn, goofy like turkey on it. And so our tradition is, it has been like it's been disrupted obviously by COVID, but we're definitely next year get back into it where everybody runs the turkey trot together, like the whole family, and it's first thing in the morning. Like it starts at like 7, so you got to be there. And everybody runs it, and then everybody goes home, and then everybody reconvenes for the big meal. And everybody wears the turkey trot shirts. They have since washed them, and everybody's wearing the same shirt from the race. That's part of our tradition.
Is there some type of sense of that you have, I don't know, you've bought yourself some type of like caloric deficit so that then you can justify partaking in the festivities?
You had a light athletic breakfast of like a banana and some water, and then you skip lunch, and you've already run 6 miles today. So yeah, you're fine to eat that 9,000 calorie meal. No problem.
Yeah. Now, Thanksgiving very much different from Halloween. There's this emphasis on charity of like, we're enjoying this bounty, but there's some people that don't have as much bounty, so we'll give to charities or, set up a shelter or donate to a food bank or go down to the homeless shelter and feed the homeless or those kinds of things.
There's another tradition that my family does for Thanksgiving that is unique to us, and I would like to share it if that's okay, Ben. Sure. So like the first year that I made Thanksgiving dinner, I prepped it at another person's house. And so I showed up there with all of my ingredients. I'm like, this is it, 100% sure. I've been thinking about this for weeks. This is everything that I'm going to need to make this dinner. Do you have a pan to roast the turkey in? Crap. And so we had to go to the store to get a pan to roast turkey in.
On Thanksgiving Day.
And so it was at my parents' house, and there is a Fry's that's like half a mile within walking distance. Or if you...
Fry's? Isn't that an electronics store?
No, not anymore. That closed. No, in Arizona, Fry's is a grocery store. And not only a grocery store, a fancy grocery store. And I'll get to that point. But if you walk to this grocery store from my parents' house, it's half a mile. If you drive to this grocery store from my parents' house, it's 8 miles. It's the same place.
What?
The way that the roads are set up around my parents' house are nutty. You can't go straight
That's
there.
a lot of difference.
I will show you on a map. Anyway, so my father and my brother and I, we all decided we're going to walk to the grocery store and grab the couple of things that I'd forgotten to make this meal, okay? And so we go into the Fry's, and like I said, this is a fancy grocery store. It is so fancy, Ben, there is a bar inside the grocery store across from the deli. And so...
Like with bar stools?
With bar stools and beers on tap and wine on tap and just a full-up bar. And we're walking past. This is the first time my father had been in there. And he goes, what is this? I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a bar. It's a fancy Fry's. He's like, well, we got to have a beer. And it's like, well, we're here to shop. All right, fine, whatever. And so we sat down at the bar. And then there's a lady working there. And she got us some beers. And my dad and I sat there. And we had a lovely beer together watching the football game that was on the TV. And we sat there for like 15, 20 minutes. And then I was sitting there with the roasting pan. And then the lady at the bar that was serving us goes, you guys should probably get going. I'm sure somebody needs that, right? And my dad goes, oh, no, he's the one that's cooking. And then she looks at us, she goes, get out of here and go cook the meal for your family.
You guys got caught in the man trap that they'd set up.
Apparently. But now...
Football and bar.
Now that is a tradition.
You were Homer Simpson.
Yeah, on the holiday, avoiding my family.
You were at Moe's.
Yes. So this is now a tradition that every Thanksgiving for like half an hour to 45 minutes, I will make some lame excuse to be like, oh, you know what? I forgot something at the grocery store. Dad, Alex, brother-in-law Jason, let's go. We got to go get something at the store. And then we pile into the car and drive and have a beer at the grocery store.
Awesome. I love that. Great tradition. So I was doing some research on the history and origins of this, and frankly, the origin of Thanksgiving is a bit fraught and lately filled with a bit of controversy, mostly surrounding, the relationship with the Native American peoples and those kinds of things. But I was surprised to learn, and this one's very much more specifically geographic, even though Halloween's kind of widespread. Thanksgiving, every culture observes some kind of like fall harvest observance and some type of thankfulness, but it's not necessarily this day. There's like 5 countries that observe Thanksgiving on this day. It was the U.S., Canada, Grenada, St. Lucia, and Liberia, which has a weird relationship to the United States. But and it's all the same kind of thing. Prayers of thanks, special Thanksgiving, ceremonies from harvest, those kinds of things. There's a lot of disputing over when the actual first was, and and pilgrims definitely did not wear buckles on their hats and shoes like we always do with the little dress-up things. But there was also a lot of politics surrounding it. It's funny, now we just have controversies about pardoning of the first turkey or whatever, but they used to make these proclamations of Thanksgiving. So I have the very first one from George Washington here. Whereas it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey his will, to be grateful for his benefits, and to humbly implore his protection and favor. And whereas both houses of Congress, blah, 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 and the great and various favors which have been pleased to confer upon us, signed George Washington. So there were these big proclamations of gratitude that were happening. It's very much focused on, like you said, it can kind of be what you want it to be, but being grateful to God for our blessings. 85% of Americans have some kind of feast on this day, and it's the most eaten day of the year. People eat more food that day than any other day. You've talked about some of them. Obviously, turkey, which is now a $1 billion industry, most of which gets eaten on the day, but also the rest of the year, as opposed to the traditional English goose. Corn, potatoes and gravy, all the seasonal vegetables that would come to harvest at that time of year, although we're much less dependent on the cycles of our food than we used to be a long time ago.
Oh, are we talking about how the fact that all of these like fall and winter holidays are just an excuse for people to not go stir crazy while they're locked in their Northern European houses during the snow and the plow, and like the harvest is already in, so there's no work to do, so everybody just hates each other, sitting in the house like it's COVID lockdown 24/7. Let's make up a holiday.
Yeah, where we eat pie and have autumn colors on everything.
Now go make pie so I can eat it and celebrate this holiday.
And I will sit here and watch somebody play football.
Go Lions.
Are there Thanksgiving movies or television shows?
Absolutely, there's a Thanksgiving movie. It's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
That's what I told my wife. She said there were no Thanksgiving movies. She's like, but Steve Martin says the F word in that. I'm like, boy, howdy, does he ever.
But it is a Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any Thanksgiving alcohol?
All of them. Like all the alcohols are Thanksgiving. Ben, this is what you're not getting. Like there are specific holiday. I never mind. I guess you're right. There is eggnog specifically for like Christmas. But most of the time, like alcohol just goes with anything, man. It's like a little black dress. It doesn't matter where you're going. Alcohol is going to make it better.
All right. So we have looked at the decorations, gift, foods, gathering, music, colors, orthodoxy, Genesis, boundaries of Halloween and Thanksgiving. Next time on episode 60 of Bad at Magic, we will look at Christmas and New Year's.
That'll be a minor segment. Christmas and New Year's are kind of like the tag-along holidays for the premier event, which is Thanksgiving.
Are they?
Man, I can feel your skepticism coming through the transmission.
Yeah. I enjoyed this discussion of the holidays. There was a lot, audience. There was a lot that is going to go into all of our social media offerings. So if you want to participate in the discussion, share some of your traditions, go on the Reddit. I'll create an open thread for the subreddit for any discussions that pop up. You can, or you can go on Facebook. You can share your Halloween costumes, talk about your favorite Thanksgiving dishes. I want to hear them. Please come interact with us and share your stuff on our Facebook and our Reddit page.
If you like what we do, share us with a friend. If you like what we talk about, maybe they'll like us too. If you really want to show us some love, consider taking your phone out of your pocket and giving us a good rating on the podcast player of your choice. It is phenomenal, the kind of visibility we get from one good review. And at last, if you just can't get enough of us, if you want Ben to talk about how he is destroying his children's holidays from now until the end of time, consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page.
And happy holidays from the Bad at Magic podcast.